Okay, everybody, it's another time for leading from home, and just to let everybody know, the good news is that we're on all channels now. So we're on Spotify, we're on iTunes, we've got all our podcasts channels synced up from requests from different podcasts favorites. So we've got people, and YouTube, of course. So we're widening our demand for subscription and as well as publication. So people, spread the word. The good news. And now let's focus on this episode. So Madeleine and Phil, welcome back to another week. How are things in your parts of the world? Well, Madeleine, you're the same as me, but how is on the other side of Stockholm, and Phil on the other side of the channel? How are things?
Week 2 of lockdown, and things are going well. Back into the new routine of not going out, and but plenty going on, and we're still being blessed with reasonable weather here. So there are a lot of people out and about doing their daily walking and exercise, which is good to hear.
Exactly. Madeleine, how are things on your side and with your team? How are people coping with, I know here in Sweden, as people said, the restrictions have been imposed tougher and tougher, and these type of things. How have the changes been and the morale from your side?
I think all in all, I think people starting to feel that the second wave is here, and that is a lot tougher than the first time.
Yeah.
So and also then you have the November weather
exactly, yeah.
in Nordics, which is quite dark in general.
Yeah, and okay, maybe if it's let's start with the tough things first, and then we can go more positive, also more uplifting at the end. But there's been now into the dark months here in the Northern Hemisphere, and particularly us in Nordics, where it's even darker. And the restrictions mean that we can't socialise with people outside our homes, and things are a lot more things. Articles about depression and people who are just feeling very lonely and the type of things are becoming big issues, like really big issues. And with Christmas, there's another stress. So can we talk about some of the things that can help people navigate these type of things? What are some of the ideas that you guys have come across or do to deal with this situation that we're doing, both the weather-wise, but also too that we are not going to be out of this over the winter? So what can we do to brighten things up, be more positive, be more bright? Madeleine, the positive and bright one, what type of things do you do with these type of situations and moments that we're dealing with?
Well, besides the walks and talks, which I am trying to really do as much as possible, I got a really interesting article from Phil, which I read, which said something about brightening your days with lots of daylight, but as well pots and plants and so on. So, and that plants should have some positive impact on you, which I think made sense. So I spread that to my team. And I also spread it to the wider team, and got some positive feedback on that. I think because there is a kind of small changes that you can do. I think, Phil, would you like to tell a little bit about that article?
Yeah, I'd love to. Thanks very much indeed. So the BBC, recognising that these dark nights are going to impact people working from home, created a lovely article. I know that you're going to be sending the link in the show notes, called How to Be Happier Working from Home. 6 simple tips, 6 simple steps we can take. The first one being light. And so making sure that when we are working from home, we maximize the amount access to light. Having the light behind the camera that we're working with, so that you've got as much natural daylight as you possibly can. Talks about minimizing the noise, and I know that it's extremely easy to get distracted whilst you're working from home by all sorts of noise, and so they say, try and cut that out as much as you can. A lovely piece which I've failed miserably at, which is all around decluttering. I'm not even going to scan the room around here, but it drives my wife wild. But it is really a very important aspect. I think tidy place, tidy mind. Point number 4, something that we're strong advocates of on this podcast: stand up. And
we're all standing up, exactly.
Yeah, we're all standing up, and it's made a world of difference to most of us here. The point that Madeleine makes about using plants and how plants make a difference in the house. And then last but by no means least, Just because we're working from home doesn't mean that we have to avoid people. And although, you know, personal contact is limited in many, many countries around the world at the moment, it's not forbidden. And in fact, actually, you know, there are a number of people who are coining the phrase, it's not about social distancing, it's about physical distancing.
Yeah.
So stop calling it social distancing.
Yeah, exactly.
And remember, we're social animals. Just be physically distant. And I think there'll be an awful lot of people with sore throats when this pandemic's over, because they've been spending their whole time shouting across the road or shouting to people from a very safe distance. But don't forget, you can still talk to people. Don't forget, it's still okay. And particularly, I think if you're a mum and dad, you know, keep reminding your children that other people, strangers, are not, you know, they're not carriers of COVID just because you don't know them, you know, and you can actually smile at them and you can actually interact with them from a distance safely. And, you know, don't treat them like pariahs. So it's 6 very practical tips. And I mean, I guess the only thing that I'd say for folks is that, you know, maybe if you're a regular subscriber to this podcast, you're doing many of these things. I mean, when I came across it, I was delighted that we were doing most of them ourselves. But, you know, take Madeleine's point that she's just made. Are you telling your teams about these good tips? Are you encouraging your team members to follow the same advice that you may be doing yourself? Because it's not just about you. You know, as a leader and leading from home, are you setting the good example? Are you encouraging and motivating your teams to do the same? So that's it. That was my article. Thanks.
Yeah, I think, but firstly, I think, like, you know, the whole point of this podcast is us sharing the knowledge, sharing what's working and sharing what we come across, because a lot of people are too busy to even read these articles. So we're trying to, like I say, find it and share it out. And that's why I think more people share these articles, share some tips, or like come up with something that is working and say, hey, look, like Madeleine did, I think your best one so far, which I didn't think of myself. And when you talked about Phil, is when you go outside, that you can meet your team outdoors. You can't say, well, let's all stick to Zoom. Be creative and saying, well, hey, we can still have a meet and drink outdoors, so we can still meet up, physical contact, rather than being so like everything must be via Zoom or telephone. So I think sharing some ideas, sharing inspiration, and I think focusing right now for me, one of the things that I, especially where it's darker here, is that getting outdoors with people more often to have that social contact. But like last Sunday, I took my sons for a bike ride and caught up with some friends. And first of all, I was like, oh, is it fine for us to catch up? But, you know, I said, well, we don't need to go to a cafe, but we can go to the bike track and, you know, keep a distance. But the kids are having fun and we're catching up, socially connecting. So it's simple as that. That's how easy this can be, rather than people are paranoid that, well, if somebody is sick that we can't go to a cafe. You don't need to go to a cafe or somewhere each time to catch up.
No, you can spend so much time outdoors. It's just the imagination that sort of sets the limit, right?
And I think normally when people normally say, oh, it's too cold to catch up, given that there's so many barriers to us catching up, just put on more warm clothes on, put some jumpers on, but go the extra mile to say, if somebody says, hey, let's catch up, I think with so much problems with mental issues or illnesses, or also loneliness, normally you'd say no, but make an effort and say, hey, half an hour with somebody is probably going to make a big difference for them if they're out asking for you. So I think, as you say, Phil, have some empathy, and also try be acting a bit more socially minded to our not our neighbours but our friends who actually need us, because these are really tough times, without a doubt. And winter is making things super hard and light, and all these article things. It's like, you know, they all help, but at the end of the day, we also need people to socialise with.
Good. Have you been picking up any good articles, Shaun?
I have. I've been learning German.
Really?
Yeah.
And how is that working?
Yeah, really well. I know one word, but it seems to be super important in terms of this, because I came across same article, same publication you, Phil, on the BBC, but they have this section called the Life Project. And I haven't read too much about it, other than this popped up on my feed about, now, for all those German type people out there who are going to knock my pronunciation, and I'll put this article in the show notes, how Feierabend helps Germans disconnect from the workday. And I don't know, Fearbend.
Try Feierabend.
Feierabend. There you go. Phil, my German translator, who's done a lot more justice rather than me doing a disjustice. So essentially, this article is about how the lines between life and work have never been so blurry at these times. So can we now shift gears to talk about how do each of us, and some inspirations for people to manage this moving lines between work and home, since we are working at home in the same place most oftenly, and to try to, and Phil, for you to help dispel this myth of this work-life balance, because there used to be a time where people like to think that, I have my work 9 to 5 and my home after that, to have this balance. But as you come out these days, you can't have these strict work-life balances because of, we have kids, we have Zoom calls, and some things done in the evening with time zones. So how can we optimize a work-life balance, by to put it, rather than having a strict, work-life balance? So starting with the lines between work and life, what are both your recommendations or ways that work for you in terms of having that lines sort of managing for you both?
I just want to pick up something from the article that you've just recommended there, around what you wear. Because I do know that there are many people who are using the opportunity of working from home to basically get up, spend the day in their pajamas or their onesies, and then the work ends and they're ready for not working. And whilst it's not something that I obsess about, and I certainly don't wear a tie, the article, and I would absolutely agree with it, there is some real value, psychological value, of dressing for work and then changing at the end of the day when your work is over. And so you dress professionally because we are professionals. And then when we finish work, we change, and that change is the change into our home life. And so it's that massive moment. You're back at that in the bedroom, changing into your casual clothes. Work is over. Even if you're in the same physical space, work is over.
I think that's interesting. It goes together with what we've said in earlier podcasts about the importance of having your own space for work. That here is my corner for work, and this is where I spend my time while working. And when I'm done working, I will close my laptop and I will walk away from there, and then change to something more casual.
Exactly. And when you see, to make fun of it, of this, on the flip side, you see movies where some people are working from home with some McDonald's on the couch and then in their pajamas and typing to emails, and that's the point, that if your atmosphere or your sort of your environment is like lazy and this, I don't really care, then your work is going to reflect it. So with these times, it's super important to, as you both say, that you have your workspace to be, this is my home office, but at the same time, dress as if you're going into the office. Because when it's, and as this article says, the direct translation, they say the translation of this word means basically work-life balance, but let's say it doesn't translate directly to that, but it means celebrating the end of your day or end of work. If you're wearing like a work shirt or whatever it is, then you think, oh yes, at 5 o'clock or wherever it's going to be, I can celebrate by putting my t-shirt on or my singlet, or if you want something else, and then physically you're in a different mood. So to have that change, put yourself in the position that you can then switch gears and switch modes, rather than at the clock saying, okay, at 6 p.m. I'm going to walk to the kitchen and then switch off, when really you haven't, because you're still thinking about work and these type of things.
For some of the younger people that I've been training who are living in much smaller accommodation, they may only have one table, and it's their kitchen table and it's their work table. But one of the things I've said to them is, look, if you've got 2 chairs, make one of the chairs your work chair. And then at the end of the day, get up, tuck it under the table, don't use it again. And when you sit on the other chair, you're not at work. When you sit on that chair, you are at work. And again, just if you can just create these kind of mental triggers for people, I'm at work because I'm in this chair, I'm in this space. I'm not in this chair, I'm not in this space, I'm not at work.
And I suppose, what are some of the habits, Phil, that you can recommend, particularly with, you know, both young and more the leaders, regarding communication, both to out to people and coming back in terms of like emails, for example, like we were talking about earlier. In France, you know, I think they have a law that they can't work past a certain number of hours, and they go to the extreme where their work phones are blocked from working after 5 p.m. so that employees can't physically check their emails. I know that it's a bit extreme, but to be pragmatic, how can we encourage people that after those hours that people have that downtime, both from leaders and employees?
I mean, it's interesting because you kind of take us into the whole realm of taming the technology, and if we can communicate and share shared expectations about, if it's urgent, you need to contact me this way. If it's not urgent, you're going to contact me this way. And if it's an email, it is by definition not urgent. And therefore manage people's expectations on your frequency of responding. I mean, that was a good tip before we started working from home. Right, exactly. But I mean, it's just becomes even more important now that we're in this situation. I think some people get suckered into, well, if I respond at 11 o'clock at night or if 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm sending a signal of commitment. I mean, I don't think there are many managers that see this as a signal of commitment. They normally see that this is a signal of someone who's out of control.
Yeah, Madeleine, this is the question I'd like to ask you in terms of, particularly with you managing teams. How do you draw the line? Like, do you send emails, in the evenings to your teams, and do people, do they feel compelled to respond to those in the evenings, or do you make a note that, okay, for me to lead, if I don't want them to work in the evenings, I do the same. So I either talk about technology, you can schedule emails that you can write it in the evening, but have it sent, at 8 a.m. the next morning. Or do you tell everyone, hey, look, I work different hours, because I have my kids. I log off between, say, 4 and 6 to spend time with my kids, and then I spend some time in the evening. So yes, you're beginning from emails, but by all means, do not respond to them in the evenings. How do you manage that email juggle?
Well, first of all, I'm very clear and transparent with my team, and always is about my expectations. That I have younger kids. That means that I go sometimes a little bit earlier and pick them up, and I'll be working a little bit later than when they're asleep. And that is nothing that I expect from any one of them. That just said, being clear upon that. But me as a leader, I need to set a good example. So I do not want to see emails flowing back and forth in the evening, because I know that that's a stressor. So I do write a lot of emails during the late evenings, but I always use the delay delivery ones. So they will never go through until in the mornings, because I know what that does. And I do not want, even if I say that I don't expect your reply, you know how it is to have a manager emailing you late in the evening. I don't want to impose that stress on people. I want people to take it easy, de-stress, and when they come back to work or online in the mornings, they should be fully recharged and not being stressed about something that I've been writing.
Yeah, I'd like to anchor this point super heavily, because from first-hand experience, I'm not the only one. When you've had managers in previous jobs who've emailed me late in the evening, and some of these emails are quite, like a sharp question, like, what is this all about? It triggers a stress response, and then you get quite angry or like stressed, going, oh, I need to answer this now. Or secondly, it's on your mind. So going to bed, you're so festering about, hey, what am I going to say about how can I handle this? I'm really stressed out. So then your sleep's going to be impacted. So the next day, you're stressed, you don't have much sleep. And thirdly, you've responded to an email that should have that's flying your way. So Phil, how can you avoid, to talk about prevention rather than cure, to avoid these situations? Do you recommend people just turn off their phones, or not phones, but not check their work emails after a certain time? Or if something comes through, how can you switch off that addiction to late night emails?
Look, I think Madeleine's behaviour is exemplary, and if anyone listening to this follows her advice, you're going to be doing your teams a massive favour. You can't dictate from one person to the next as to whether or not they need to keep their phones on or not. I think you just need to be incredibly mindful of the disruptive effect it has if at that point where you're transitioning from being at work to not being at work, you've still got an eye. That buzz or that ring is triggering a response.
Yeah.
And I think Simon Sinek talks about it really very well. It's the dopamine hit. It's why people get obsessed with social media. It's exactly the same with emails, because the signal there's an email in is almost, do they love me? Am I still wanted? Am I still needed?
Yeah.
And learning that you don't need to get that affirmation of your value 24 hours a day, 7 days a week is an incredibly important step forward.
Well, I know we don't encourage drugs, but for those who remember the Blackberry used to be called the crackberry, crack being drugs, and that's the thing with it being the first sort of smartphone when it came out, that you could have your emails pushed to you 24/7. So people were like, even at the pub in the evenings, looking at the phone, oh sorry, emails come through, I've got to go. So it's socially disruptive, but also too it's stressful, it's a stress engaging thing. So I think the message from this conversation is that as a manager, please be mindful of, does this message really need to go in the evening? Or as Madeleine says, write it, but by all means, send it the next day by delivery function. If you don't know how to do it, ask your IT support, but it's not very hard. But these type of things, think of your employee, but those who've got kids, and these type of things, you don't need to have a stress coming their way or something which you can't filter out that is going to disrupt their life in the evening, which we need to optimize, not disrupt people's work life. And speaking of clothes, Phil, I've got something. We're coming up to Christmas time, and Madeleine and I have got something which is going to really help you be a bit more colourful, because your jumpers here aren't exactly that good. But I don't know if this is going to come through. Let me flick through.
Madeleine, this is going to be just end in tears. Oh my life.
Phil has been after one of these for so long about being colourful and being a bit more hip and cool. So we're going to send this your way for Christmas time. So everybody,
thank you.
Any other tips for colourful Phil?
We would ask you any preference in colours, but I think all of them were there.
All there. I say it's the colours of the rainbow. So Phil's going to be wearing this jumper sometime during December. So as I say, we're going to get that, Phil. So there you go.
Thank you so much.
A bit of colour and inspiration we're trying to talk about, that's coming your way.
That's very, very good to hear. Actually, I've got on that note, I will promise for the first podcast of December to wear a shirt that I've got, which is very understated, but you'll see that, and that's my promise. I'll wear that for the session in December.
Fantastic. Well, as I say, we're just talking about how can we make these tough times better. So what we're going to be doing for this podcast, for each of our podcasts in December, is that we're going to have a bit like a Kris Kringle. We have a fun theme for each week. So each of us are going to be either dressing up with some type of Christmas theme or something to add a bit of humor into our Christmas podcast audiences. So stay tuned for each of our fun. Instead of having the 12 days of Christmas, we're going to have the 3 weeks of fun Christmas podcast, and my wardrobe is all lined up, kitted up for this. So this one, you can bring your kids to some of these ones, everybody out there, because we have some Santas appearing, we have some crazy kits. So and maybe I'll even get some special guests from my mini Santas to appear in the podcast too. So I say we're going to mix it up because we're leading from home. Leading from home involves our family, so the studio will be opened up during Christmas time. So looking forward to for those everybody, and get your kicking cats on, Phil, with your new jumper you're going to be wearing. You got other stuff to get ready for.
Alrighty, that's the deal. Lovely to see everybody. Stay safe. And
what's before you go, weekend? How's lockdown? What's some creative ways of getting through this lockdown this weekend? Both.
Well, after a comfortable 40-0 win against Georgia last weekend, England have got a very, very tough fixture against Ireland. It should be a great game of rugby, and I can't wait to watch it.
Fantastic. Well, good luck. And Madeleine, what's happening on your side of the of Stockholm?
I am all on the Christmas theme, so I will go nuts with the Christmas decorations and my kids all the weekend. So I'm starting off tonight. And I'm not sure if I'm going to finish because this is fun.
Well, exactly. I'm doing exactly the same as you. My kids have been colouring pictures of Christmas all week, and now we're doing the Christmas lights this weekend. light therapy. So we're going to a shop to buy as much Christmas lights as possible, and just make the house light like a light bomb. So I'll try and take some photos for you guys for next week. So there we go, fun, lights, and some rugby. So we've got it all covered.
Fantastic.
Thanks, guys. Have a nice week. And next week we're going to be off because we all got engagements, but we're going to hit the road running for Christmas the week back. So stay tuned for a Christmas kickoff in a couple of weeks' time.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.